The shift log has 2 entries: badge number 4471, badge number 4488, both clocked in at 9:47 p.m. That is the complete roster for that call. 2 officers, 1 welfare check, elderly resident on the 4th floor of a building on the east side of the city. No disturbance reported. No prior calls to that address in the preceding 6 months. The incident report, filed at 10:23 p.m. the same night, lists the call as resolved with no action required. Resident was home. Resident was fine. Officers departed. That is what the incident report says. Officer A's body cam shows 3 people in that hallway. Not a reflection. Not a partial frame. A figure standing near the far doorway at the 4-minute 12-second mark. That is present across 3 consecutive frames spanning 13 seconds. The figure does not move between frames. It stands. It has a shadow on the wall behind it, cast at the correct angle for the overhead light in that corridor. The feet are on the floor. Officer A does not turn toward it. Officer A does not slow down. Officer A's audio records nothing. No footstep, no word, no breath that changes. The figure is simply there in the frame for 13 seconds. Officer B's body cam from the same timestamp shows an empty hallway. The FOIA request was filed 7 weeks after the incident. The footage came back in full. Both cameras, all timestamps intact. The department fulfilled the request with no documents, or so the cover letter stated. But somewhere between the 9:47 p.m. clock-in and the 10:23 p.m. incident report, someone inside that department had already looked at this footage. The memo that proves it is dated 4 days after the call. The FOIA return arrived as a compressed file. 47 documents, 2 video files, 1 cover letter. The cover letter confirmed the request had been fulfilled in its entirety. No documents, no footage redacted. A complete record of the welfare check dated that evening. The first video file is Officer A's body cam. The footage runs 22 minutes and 9 seconds. For the first 4 minutes and 11 seconds, it shows a standard approach lobby, elevator, 4th floor corridor. The elevator doors open at 4:09. Officer A walks left. At 4:12, the figure appears. Frame 1, 9:51:04 p.m. The figure is partially visible at the edge of the frame, near the doorway at the end of the corridor. Partially obscured. Easy to miss. Frame 2, 9:51:09 p.m. Officer A has moved forward. The figure is now centered in the background. Standing, not facing the camera. Frame 3, 9:51:17 p.m. Full visibility. Both officers are now in frame 4471 and 4488. Badge numbers readable on their chest rigs. The figure stands behind them near the wall. The shadow is wrong. Not wrong in a vague sense. Wrong in a specific measurable sense. The overhead fluorescent in that corridor casts shadows forward and down. Officer A's shadow falls at the correct angle. Officer B's shadow falls at the correct angle. The third figure's shadow falls at the correct angle. All 3 shadows are consistent with the same light source. The figure has mass. It occupies space. The light treats it the same as the 2 officers standing 6 feet in front of it. Neither officer turns around. At 4:18, 1 second after the 3rd frame, Officer A reaches the resident's door and knocks. The figure is no longer in frame. The corridor behind the officers is empty. The second video file is Officer B's body cam. At 9:51:04 p.m., Officer B's footage shows the same corridor. Empty. At 9:51:09 p.m., empty. At 9:51:17 p.m., Officer A is visible from behind, approaching the door. The corridor behind Officer A is empty. 13 seconds. The same hallway. One camera shows 3 people. One camera shows 2. The resident opened the door at 4:21. The resident was an elderly woman. She answered questions. She said she was fine. She reported no one else in the hallway. She said she had not heard anything unusual before the knock. One camera showed 3 people. One camera showed 2. Both cameras were running in the same hallway at the same time. That was the footage. That was the complete record as it existed in the FOIA return. No additional materials. No supplemental reports. The cover letter said the request had been fulfilled in its entirety. Then the memo surfaced. It was in the FOIA return, page 31 of 47. An internal department communication formatted on official letterhead dated 4 days after the welfare check. The subject line read, "Equipment anomaly body camera unit under review." The memo was brief, 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph identified the incident by date and call number. The second paragraph described the footage as containing a visual artifact consistent with lens distortion or sensor malfunction, and recommended the footage be reclassified as technically compromised pending review by the department's Equipment Maintenance Division. The third paragraph stated that the reclassification would be reflected in the official incident record. No review findings were ever released. The reclassification was reflected. The original footage remained in the FOIA return because it had already been requested before the reclassification took effect. But the incident record, as it now stands, lists the footage status as equipment anomaly under review. Not resolved, not cleared, under review indefinitely. The memo had a filing badge number at the bottom, not a name, a number. Standard departmental format. The officer who filed the memo is identified only by their badge number. In the public release, that number is redacted. A solid black rectangle where the digits should be. There are public databases for badge number lookups in that department. The records go back 19 years. Every badge number that has ever been assigned to an active or former officer appears in at least one public-facing document: a commendation log, a disciplinary record, a court appearance, a union filing. The redacted badge number from that memo appears in none of them. Not redacted elsewhere, not partial, simply absent. As if the badge number had never been issued to anyone, or as if every record connecting it to a person had been removed from every database that accepts public requests. The memo exists. The badge number on it does not. The memo was filed before the FOIA request. That is the detail that does not fit the equipment anomaly explanation. If the memo had been filed in response to a public records request, filed because the department needed to contextualize footage that was about to become publicly visible, the sequence would make sense. The department sees external scrutiny coming, flags the footage preemptively, manages the record. That is a recognizable institutional behavior. It explains the memo, but the memo is dated 4 days after the incident. The FOIA request was filed 7 weeks after the incident. Someone inside the department watched that footage within 4 days of the welfare check, not in response to outside inquiry, not because a records request forced a review. Someone watched it on their own, saw what was in it, and within 4 days had generated a formal internal communication recommending the footage be administratively reclassified. The person who did that has a badge number. That badge number is redacted. The equipment anomaly explanation itself does not hold against the footage. Lens distortion does not cast geometrically accurate shadows. The sensor malfunction does not produce a figure whose feet are in contact with the floor at the correct perspective angle. These are not subjective assessments. They are geometric properties of the image. The shadow falls where a shadow would fall if a person were standing there. The feet align with the floor plane where feet would align if a person were standing there. The only explanation the memo offers is the word anomaly, repeated twice, with no technical specifics. Officer A was interviewed as part of a separate, unrelated incident 6 weeks after the welfare check. A transcript of that interview is in the public record. The interviewing officer asked a routine question about the welfare check call. It was referenced as a prior call to the same address in the unrelated incident file. Officer A's response is 7 words. 7 words. The welfare check resident died 4 months later. Natural causes. The death certificate is public record. She was found by a neighbor who had not seen her in several days. She was alone in the apartment. The apartment was the same 1/4 floor, east side, the one with the hallway where the footage was recorded. No follow-up footage from that building was ever released. No additional FOIA materials have been located. The original request was fulfilled completely per the department's cover letter, and the case is administratively closed. The incident record lists 2 responding officers. The footage from Officer A lists 3. The memo says the footage is an anomaly. The footage says it is not. Both of those things are in the official record. Both are verifiable. They do not resolve each other. The institution has not been asked to reconcile them because the question has not been formally posed in a context that requires a formal answer. The FOIA return is complete. There is nothing left to request. Officer B is listed at a different precinct, reachable in theory through public channels. No contact has been made. The badge number from the memo is redacted. In the public release, in the version that was formally returned in response to a legal records request, someone decided that number should not be visible. That decision was made by a person with the authority to make it. That person is not identified anywhere in the FOIA return. The figure in the footage is still there, frame by frame, shadow on the wall, feet on the floor. The memo says it is equipment. The equipment recorded a shadow that follows the laws of light. The resident is gone. The officers have moved on or gone quiet. The record is closed. And somewhere in a department archive, in a folder that has already been marked as fulfilled and filed away, there is a page 31 with a black rectangle at the bottom where a number used to be, and whatever that number connected to, it has not appeared in any public document since the night 2 officers walked into a hallway, and one of them came back with footage of 3.